Welcome to the B2B CMO podcast, a show for marketing executives who are redefining what it means to be a strategic leader. I'm John Miller.
And I'm Sydney Sloan. Between us, we've led marketing orgs at companies like Marketo, which John founded, Demandbase, G2, and SalesLoft. For more marketing leadership resources, you can visit b2bcmoproject.com. And now, let's get into the show.
Welcome again to the B2B CMO podcast. This is John Miller, and today I'm joined by my always co-host, Sydney Sloan, as well as our special guest, Karl Bergh, who is the CMO over at Illumio, known as the world's first breach containment platform, which we will talk about. Over the course of more than 25 years, Karl has held leadership roles in marketing, product, and as a GM in the cloud analytics and cybersecurity businesses, including SAP, Gigamon, Datastax, and Tibco, to name a few. Karl, welcome. So glad to have you here.
Great to be here, John, and great to spend time with you in Sydney. Looking forward to it.
Excellent. Well, we'll just dive right in. And it's a question that we like to start with and getting to know you a little bit better. And I, when doing research, was so excited to ask you this question because you have such a unique story. So you grew up in Ireland, went to Trinity College in physics, and then you got your master's degree in computer science from Imperial College in London, and then a humanities degree from the University in Florence. And so we usually like to say, tell your origin story, but I'm like, I want you to hit on all of those parts. Where did you come from?
Yeah, exactly. I am a bit of a mongrel as well. Growing up in Ireland with the last name Vandenberg at the time was pretty unusual. And my first name is German, so I really have the worst Irish name possible. But I am indeed Irish. I grew up in Dublin. My dad was from Belgium. He moved over and met my mom, hence kind of growing up in Ireland, but with a Flemish last name. And then, as you just outlined, I do love to travel. I still do. But I spent most of my life kind of working and studying in different countries. And so the hard part for me was not moving and, discovering a new culture and making my way in new culture and doing new things. The hard part for me is actually staying still. And so I have now stayed still here in California for 20 plus years because I have kids and they keep you, one place, and I'm loving it. But my origin and kind of the studies, I am a lifelong learner. I think John and I have physics in common. I think it's a fascinating science, kind of between philosophy and science. It sort of brings these things together. But being a physicist wasn't my thing, and so I did computer science. And then just because I love learning, I went to Florence and did humanities. And we could talk a little bit more about that later, but yeah, that's it. And then I kind of moved over here to Silicon Valley, as I said, about 20 years ago, and been in tech in different functions. And now the CMO at Illumio.
What do you think physics has taught you about marketing?
Or humanity, just physics?
Yeah, so look, I and even the other functions that I've run, I think marketing is just a fascinating function. It is so broad and requires so many different disciplines, from, again, like philosophy or like understanding people to the math of it, obviously the mechanics of it. Now it is one of the most tech forward functions. You have to understand numbers, of course. You have to be strategic. And so I think physics for me it definitely requires you to think deeply. And I was deep into quantum mechanics at the time. It just makes you understand that the world is not as you see it. It is, very different from what your senses tell you it is. And I think that kind of broadens the perspective on how, and living in different countries too, how you see other people, how you understand how they operate and they think is not how you necessarily operate and think. Especially learning another language gives you that like extra dimension. But yeah, I loved the fact that physics really makes you think deeply, and I think I've applied that in how I market.
I've often referred to it as a head of marketing or market. It tickles all parts of your brain, right? Like you go from one meeting where you're creative to the next meeting where you're
Totally.
deeply analytical to then a messaging and then a strategy session, and no 2 days are ever the same.
Which makes it really tough. So, which
Yes.
is why, John and I talked about this ratio, and it's a ratio I use a lot to kind of help people understand why CMO tenure is so low. And one of the lowest of the functions because of the complexity of the role to the appreciation, and the appreciation in the sense of recognition, because it kind of falls between the cracks, product and sales often, and the understanding bit in particular, because we've all heard this and said this many times before, that because we're all exposed to marketing as consumers, we think, or a lot of people think, they understand marketing. And in B2B tech, marketing is so broad and so complicated and evolving so fast that it makes it a really hard job to do. You have to be, as you said, Sydney, left brain, right brain, which is not easy for any one person to do.
Yeah, and I think what we're trying to accomplish in the B2B CMO project is to share these learnings of like, how do we remain strategic? And I noticed that you call yourself a chief market officer. Yay. I believe I share the same title.
Yep.
And because I believe that it is, a different perspective, not the act of marketing, but actually the impact of being a market leader. And I would love for you to explain to our audience why do you have that title? And how do you define the role and your responsibility, because it's not a chief marketing role?
Yeah, so I hope and expect that more CMOs will adopt the market versus marketing. I think marketing obviously is the function, but really, what is the function, or what are we trying to do? It is to shape the market, and it's also to communicate the needs of the market to the company. So it kind of goes bi-directionally. And I think shaping the market and shaping obviously the company's perception or positioning, or the product's positioning and offering in the market, is the primary responsibility. And so you have to operate at a strategic level. And that means that you have to deploy all of the aspects of marketing, from brand and the awareness component all the way through to demand and enablement. And so yeah, for me, it's also, the unfortunate thing about being sometimes being the kind of the marketing guy or gal, is that customers don't really want to meet with the marketing person. They want to meet with the product person. They have to meet with the salesperson. So I find sometimes marketing gets in the way of being able to, get close to customers. And so, being chief market or chief strategy officer often enables closer contact with the market.
Oh, that's interesting. That's really interesting. I mean, because my last two stints have been in rev tech, so that's why I've enjoyed it. And I also did a stint in security where I didn't have much to say to a CISO. I could listen because I wasn't yet an expert in that area. I know you've gone deeply in cyber, so I can imagine your level of expertise. But one of the other questions I kind of wanted to touch on before John picks up is the first finding in our research, which was this ability to have influence was a direct correlation to how you develop relationships across the C-suite. And in the idea of this chief market officer role, do you think it changes how you build relationships with the C-suite, or do you do it the same way as you've done before? Just curious about.
I started as chief marketing officer, and I was the one who, hey, I need to change the title. So that was the thing that we started during my tenure here. But the C-suite and building those relationships and the understanding of marketing and the function and value of marketing is one of the primary responsibilities of the CMO. I call it the CMO Tax, simply because it's not just obviously the peers and the board, but it is something that we have to understand, because of that low ratio that I talked about, high ratio, because of the complexity of depreciation. A lot of what we need to do in order to be effective, ultimately, is to educate, evangelize, and to kind of bring the C-suite and the board along the journey. And so, the things that, and, a little bit of a playbook I've developed that I've found helpful in doing that is one, speak in a language they understand. And they do understand numbers, they understand sales, I mean, generally speaking. And so often what I will do is I will start with the things they understand. So they care about pipeline, the contribution to bookings, and how all of that, the kind of the very practical ROI, right? I invest $1 here, here's the pipeline, and here's the bookings. I don't get into top of the funnel too much because, again, that's sort of can be vanity metrics, or it can be something that really they don't appreciate. So it's more about pipeline bookings. And then once you've built the way I run marketing and the way I talk about marketing with the executive team and the board is very like sales, which is I say, we have a target. I have an overassignment of target to my team. So my team's target, just like sales overassigns. And then we obviously I have a forecast too. So I forecast, and then, we obviously report out. So, and then in order to be able to go and do the other things that are very strategic and important to marketing, I need to build a little bit of predictability that I'm going to deliver on what I've committed to. And so we do this, and there's ways to do that, that we could talk about, but basically build that predictability. They understand the numbers, they understand I'm delivering, and then I can talk about the bigger picture. And that's super important to me. The bigger picture, I know, John, you're all over this one, but the bigger picture, the story, the awareness, marketing to all those people who are not currently in market, which is most of them, is super, super important.
Well, and they just go so hand in hand, right? You can't really generate the pipeline if you haven't built the category and the brand position.
Correct.
And all that kind of stuff. And I think that's something that you've done that to me is really interesting at Illumio. So, I'll let you tell a story, but you were very methodical about defining the category that you're going in, and why you're going after that category, and how you are evangelizing the category, not just your position. And then ultimately how you're measuring that. So it was really insightful. So maybe tell us about that.
First of all, advice to all CMOs out there: do not create a category unless you absolutely have to, because
it's so hard.
It is so hard. And it's not just about the category. It's like now we've gone through a couple of evolutions as a company. I've been here for a year plus, but the company has been around for 10 years, and I believe this is one of those companies where it's such an inflection point that's going to be the overnight success that took 10 years, which many great things do. But for the category, for length of the company, it really was kind of the micro segmentation or zero trust segmentation company. And that was a long, hard slog because, again, back in the day, no one was like, what's microsegmentation? What's segmentation? Why do I need it? I have all of these firewalls. Why do I need this other thing, right? And it's getting the hardest thing to change inside a company, in the market, in any endeavor, as you know, are human beings. Humans, we take a long time to change our minds. And that's essentially what defining a category is. You've got to you've got to squeeze in your category or your product or your offering or your solution into the way that they normally do business. And so that's really hard. But the change that we went through over the last year whereas that first part was really about defining the technology, which any startup will do, right? They'll anchor their positioning to a technology or a new way of doing things, which was segmentation or micro-segmentation. And for the audience that maybe doesn't know what that means, it basically just means when you've got your network, you want to break up your network, segment it, so that when you have a cyber attack and they are successful in getting in, which, by the way, now absolutely guaranteed with AI, they're going to get in. you need to basically segment off your high value assets, your customer data, etc., so that they can't get to those assets. It's like basically having a safe in your house. Yes, you want to have locks in your doors and windows, your perimeter security, but once they get in, you want to have your jewelry in a safe. And that's what we are. We're kind of the safe for your high value assets inside an organization so they can't do any damage. But that was where the company was positioned. What we've done now, because that's, I would say, a technology-based definition of the market and category. What we've done now is move to a value-based. So we are now the breach containment company. So our value is, whereas most of the industry, I'd say 99% of cyber is about stopping breaches, our positioning is breaches are inevitable. They will happen. Mythos, if you've heard about the whole debacle about Mythos, makes that very clear that they will happen. Cyber attacks will be successful. They will get in. And we're the ones that are focusing on containing the breach so it doesn't become a disaster. And that breach containment, contain the breach, which is kind of our tagline, has provided tremendous benefit because it really crystallizes the value and the differentiation very quickly for what we do versus the 500 other cyber vendors out there.
Can you talk about how did you kind of bring the company along to get to that outcome? How did you convince your fellow peers? And then how did you make the investments to actually start to communicate this?
So, some of this work was already, I would say, underway as a campaign. There was the corporate marketing team had started an effort when I was on board to think about what's a campaign that we can, show the value of what we do, right? So some of this was already underway, and when I had felt coming to Illumio, I knew about the company for some time. I felt it was a diamond in the rough. I felt that we weren't yet communicating clearly to market what is the real impact of this technology. And so what we did was we tested out this, campaign, and it was really an awareness campaign. We did some stuff in Forbes and some other venues, and we started to see, positive feedback or hear positive feedback. So it was kind of a test at first. And then internally, obviously talking with the CEO, we're lucky that we have a founder who's still in seat as the CEO. So CEO founder understood the value and that the time is right to change the positioning. So there was actually not a lot of resistance, John. I think it was a pretty seamless, because he understood that this was a great way to crystallize the value of what we do. And so that was it. We launched it. We have a brand awareness tracker that we started, I guess, probably I've been here coming up on 1.5 years. So about 6 months before I started. So it was great to have this baseline before we started. And we survey about 1,000. We have an agency does this, 1,000 security professionals in different geos where we operate around the globe. And we had that as a baseline. We put in place this new positioning. We push it out at RSAC, which is a big cybersecurity conference in San Francisco. And then we've seen an incredible growth. And I wouldn't put it down just to this, obviously, but it's this of many things. In 24 months now, we just did our last one, we have grown nearly 4x in unaided awareness. Unaided awareness means who do you think of when you think of, segmentation, which is unheard of. And I think it's a function of, yes, how well the team is operating, but it's also, as I mentioned, that the market is coming to us. The market really has kind of hit an inflection point. So both of those things have come together.
How have you been able to convince the CFO that metric matters as much as the pipeline metric does, and is therefore worthy of investment?
Yes, and in fact, and I'll give credit, shout out to my CFO and CEO. That is Anoop, our CFO, and Andrew, our CEO. I want to say they're pretty enlightened C-level executives. I actually went back. We had closed our AOP, and we have a healthy marketing budget at Illumio. And I actually went back and I said at the beginning of the year, I think we need to double down and do even more in awareness. So this is when we kind of closed the books, and I came back and basically asked for a 50% increase in awareness. Because I said, I feel like the time is right for us to double down. And we could talk about the Mythos thing and what we had already in place. And it was nearly like we had anticipated that happening. But so how do I convince the CFO? It comes down to, and I've used this concept and written about this concept before, a return on objectives as opposed to ROI, return on investment. And all that means is that, yes, ultimately, I believe, as you do, John, this thing translates to pipeline and to bookings. And the sellers, always appreciate the fact that we're a known entity when they're going into a prospect. But beyond that, how do you measure the impact? Well, we have shorter term metrics, which is, I will say, for this particular investment, whether it be, I don't know, like an digital ABM to our target accounts. So we obviously want to target as much as we can. The goal is to raise awareness within a certain persona within those target accounts. And then we have metrics that tell us, are they engaging? Are they coming to our website? Are they downloading material? So these are not ultimately pipeline, they are awareness, but at least we understand that the investment we're making, and I want to know how we are doing relative to industry benchmark. Because, in isolation, it's hard to know, is this good or bad? So I always show, here's how we do, here's how we're performing relative to benchmark. And then helping understand the strategy for me is explain the strategy of awareness. And the strategy of awareness is, as you said, John, many times, which is at any one time, you've got 5% that are in market. Great. Okay. Those 95% that aren't yet thinking about your problem space. What you want to make sure is that when they do come around to thinking about your problem space, that you're top of mind. Because you want to be on a short list. Because by the time because if you're on a short list, you're basically screwed. If for some reason you get into a sales cycle, but you weren't on the original short list, you might be just there for, I don't know, price compression with their existing highest prospect or top vendor. You want to be on the short list. And so my goal is to get us on the short list always, so they have top of mind when they're ready, number one. Number two, I want to generate more segmentation projects. So hence, you talked about earlier, John, it's not just about Illumio. It's about, why do you need segmentation in a post-Mythos world? Why do you need breach containment in a post-Mythos world? Nothing to do with Illumio. Right? I do generally believe it is absolutely critical to get a breach containment strategy and platform in place. If it's not Illumio, I'm okay with that. But we have a pretty good shot at being on that short list, just given where we are in the market.
How much in the last year and a half? So you started this before the rapid change of buyer research on LLMs.
Yes.
I'm pretty self-assured that your personas are on LLMs researching a breach strategy. So how have you tackled that as it relates to AEO, GEO, and what measurement are you using? Is that in the same metrics conversation as awareness, or are you treating it differently?
I'm very, very focused on this one, but it doesn't make it all the way up to the executive team or the board. But obviously, that is the world that we live in, and that's where you want to be showing up. So we've invested in a number of tools that help us track where we show up in terms of people. What are people searching for in the LLMs, and how do you rank, relative to the things that we care about? And what we know, at least what I know, and would love to know additional thoughts here because definitely still learning, is the importance of, back to what we said about awareness. In order to show up well on an LLM, you've got to be in credible sites, third party, you got to be in peer reviews sites. So the community is an important source. So whether it be, Reddit or G2, that's I think where you were, Sydney, right? Or
Yeah.
Gartner Peer Insights or your own community, right? So that's one important source. The other is if you are in credible online publications like Forbes or Wall Street Journal or wherever your audience hangs out, and then obviously having very high value content that's available and credible. All of that feeds into where you get positioned in the LLM. So I told, this is a while back, I told the PR team, the AR team, and the community team, you guys need to all work really closely with our AEO, SEO person to make sure that you guys are all coordinated, because this thing is going to have a huge impact on how we show up.
And I think that because I do talk about AEO a lot, the key, which you touched on a little bit, is understanding all the questions your personas are asking, not just when they're in the buying cycle.
Yes.
And that's how you build brand in the LLM era, is like, as you said it, I'm just calling it back out for our audience, is I want to be the answer. I actually don't care if they pick Illumio, I want them to get the right answer. So if you're focused on those questions, then you become that brand influence.
Yeah. And there's some really cool tools out there now. We have like a whole bunch of tools that we've acquired that now.
You can shout them out if you want. I'm like, we're all in this learning together. This is the point of this community and the podcast. Like, what's working for you?
The traditional ones we had, like SEMrush, which we've been used as being a very good tool. There's a new one, Profound. I think that's awesome, that tool, right? It's at least it's showing us.
It shows you all your prompt, citation, source, share of answer.
Yeah, and then it generates content for you. It shows where you are relative to your competitors. So it sounds like
you're a leader on
G2,
so you picked the right one. Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. There you are. Team did a good job. I had nothing to pick it. They said, here, we have this new tool. I said, awesome. Show me how it works. And I was like, wow, this is really cool. Yeah.
Illumio often picks good tools. I know this.
You're biased, John, I think. Yeah.
Before we wrap up, I think, I know from our prior conversations that another one of the changes you've brought to the team is sort of a move towards account-based metrics and really trying to evolve your marketing that way.
Yes.
Any lessons learned from that?
John, we've talked for some time about this one. This one is super important, but boy, is it hard. And simply because our whole systems, tools, methodology, mindset has been, lead-based for so long. And like trying to move to true account-based marketing is a long, long journey. I think the bits that that I think we've gotten right and have been very effective is the account-based tiering model. My last company, we built it with our in-house data scientists and ML. This go round, we've largely derived it, worked out with 6 Sense to build it. But the goal is always the same: is using the data to determine, what are the accounts that the sales team should be focused on. And that has been super effective in that we are religious about this, which is we'll look at the data, we'll tier the accounts, and we use, all dimensions from ideal customer profile to intent to engagement, right? Mix all those together. And we have systematically seen that, the tier 1 or top tier outperform in terms of conversion to bookings, conversion to opportunities, deal size. And so I've been absolutely religious about, we are not going to fund, we're like marketing, we're going to focus on these tiers. And I need sales and partners, everyone to be aligned on the same accounts. Because otherwise there's no point marketing spending money on an account that sales is not going to be focused on, right? Now there could be accounts outside of what we're focused on, but I need 70% plus overlap between the three go-to-market functions. And that has been very, very effective. That piece, yes. What I don't have yet, and John, I'm looking to you to fix this. What I don't have yet is being able to, within accounts, identify the buying groups easily. We've got a kind of way that we are doing it now with, we have a methodology with 6 Sense. We kind of do it. It's a little bit manual. But what I want to be able to see, like within one account, a lot of our customers are large. We have maybe 4 buying groups. There are different stages. I want to color code them different. I want different tactics applied to different buying groups. That's the nirvana that I'm looking for, and we're not quite there yet.
It's hard to get there with the legacy technology, no doubt about it.
Very hard, yeah.
So let's wrap up with some fun facts.
Yeah. So we this is hard these days. Our jobs have not gotten easier. They definitely have gotten harder.
I love my job, by the way. I think it can be the worst job in the world, and it can be the best job in the world at the same time.
So we like to end with fun, inspiring questions. And I would love for you, we talk about what do you do outside of work, but even I want to take that one step further with you. It's where do you find your inspiration as well? You have such a interesting, diverse kind of background. So not just your 5 to 9, but where is the inspiration also where you tap into?
Yeah, look, goodness, I'd say at heart, I'm a philosopher. That's probably, so one thing it's not on my resume, but I was a monk for 5 years.
Okay.
So that was part of my trip in Italy. I kind of went down that path, which was fantastic. I was part of the Catholic Church, and I was a monk. And so as I said, I like to think deeply. I love beauty in all its forms, whether it be art. I have lots of art in my house. I love amazing food. I love to travel. I told you I'm kind of a lifelong learner, and my inspiration comes from just finding I'm working on happiness, finding joy in life. I wasn't always as happy. I must say, doing very well today, but I wasn't always this way. Yeah. One of the side effects of having doing a lot of thinking is you can sometimes work yourself into a bit of a mess, which I did quite successfully when I was younger. But fortunately, I've kind of figured things out. So yeah, I get inspired. I have now also a 4-year-old, and she definitely inspires me every day. I'm just seeing her quotes graduate from preschool yesterday. It was hilarious, but they did graduation from preschool. So lots of different places, Sydney, I guess.
Well, it's, the childhood joy maybe is connecting to the joy that you're also feeling as being a parent as well. Yeah. And you can tap into that and just look at definitely. The joy from the simplest and most pure part, which is our children. Yeah. The last thing that we like to give you the opportunity to do is share gratitude. We don't get here on our own.
No.
And so if you wanted to shout out a couple of folks that have helped you along the way, we'll be sure to mention that in the notes. Yeah.
I'll start with my dad. He's no longer with us, but definitely an inspiration. Tough man. When I was growing up, I kind of left Ireland in part to get away from him. We became very close friends for the last 10 years. He was alive, and he was an entrepreneur. Obviously came from a different country, as we talked about, and was very, very kind of driven, high integrity, and very, very wise at the end of his life, man. So definitely huge influence. In terms of bosses, I guess I'll put a boss on there. Brian Gentile, who is the CEO of Jaspersoft, where I was for a while. Fantastic individual, great human being. He got me really focused on organizational and the importance of people and management, and Patrick Lencioni's kind of books. And he was fantastic. And then I have to do a shout out to my current team. I think we just had our QBR yesterday. This team is on fire. And so I'll name my leaders because they listen to these podcasts sometimes. Ryan, Raghu, and Rick, the 3 R's, are doing a fantastic job.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, this has been a power-packed podcast, I will say. We covered a lot of ground, and it touches a lot on the research and findings. But for me, what I took away here in your playbook, as you mentioned, is the first thing that we need to do to be strategic CMOs is to speak in the language that your board and leadership understand. So starting with pipeline, ROI, and bookings, and not really talking about the metrics that marketing manages around top of the funnel and some of things that could be perceived as vanity. We know it's important, but we can keep that amongst ourselves. I liked, and I haven't heard a lot of, you were talking about predictability. So you talk about your target plus over assignment. I don't think a lot of CMOs actually play the same way sales does and actually over assigning the quotas with our pipeline numbers as well. And having that forecast and managing it like sales does to get the predictability, which ultimately gets the trust. And so once you have that and you're predictable, then you can work on the bigger picture things like the story awareness and brand building, which you've done a phenomenal job of doing, highlighting. You went back after the fact and asked for 50% more and delivered 4x growth on your awareness, which you track. Just awesome. Just wow. Because people need to listen to that. And then the last thing I took away is this idea of return on objective versus return on investment. And, how do you make sure that you're a known entity, that you have engagement metrics and you're tracking those against industry benchmarks to show the proof of the value of that investment, which the objective is to be known. So when your salespeople engage with an account, they already know who Illumio is. And that's the job of our teams as marketing teams. So I just want to thank you for those amazing tidbits and getting to know you too as a person. It was joyful.
Great to meet you, Sydney, and great to reconnect, John, as always. And so happy to do this any other time. I know you got lots of guests, I'm sure, lining up, but I look forward to continuing this important mission of helping B2B CMOs and unforgotten population sometimes. So I'm glad we're putting something together to help.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, if you like what you heard today, please make sure that you come over to the B2BCMOproject.com. You can find our research, our podcasts, more like these conversations with Karl, and get involved in the community. If you're an enterprise B2B CMO, we want you to be involved. We want to learn together, share together, and this is our mission. So thanks, everybody. Have a fantastic day.
Thanks for listening to the B2B CMO podcast. Head on over to B2BCMOproject.com for more episodes, plus the latest research and frameworks CMOs need, not just to survive, but actually thrive as AI and the new playbook reshape how we go to market. And if this episode sparks something for you, please follow the show, leave a rating, and share it with a marketing leader who could use a little inspiration. Special thanks to our wonderful partners, OneMind, 2X, Check, Demandbase, G2, Goldcast, LinkedIn, Fave, Syndoso, and Webflow for making this podcast possible. Until next time, be safe out there.